Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Welcome. This is the podcast. So there I was. So there I was. Which is how all great aviation stories
all of them
begin. All of them. And this is episode 41, titled, That's Not a Tanker.
Or more likely, That's Not a Tanker.
It's not a
Don't try.
What a great story. This is Bo, and he is a F-14 Rio radar intercept officer, backseater in F-14. So he's a Goose, right?
Yeah,
he was Goose.
Exactly.
And he was our first Rio, and he had a bunch of great stories as well. Somewhere
he survived, unlike Goose, but he gets into that a little bit. And somewhere around all the fingers and toes, he lost count of all the friends he lost over the years, including one of their. Was it his second cruise? They said that he said they started out and lost 2 or 3 airplanes right away.
Yeah, the second cruise was brutal, and he talks about some of those stories and lost squadron mates. It's rough. That's the rough part,
right? And the ones that survived. That's not a shark.
Yeah, that's another good one. Was that a shark?
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, it seems to me that every F-14 pilot's mind goes right to sharks as soon as they hit the water.
It seems like, you know what? That's been a common theme, hasn't it?
It really has. Those guys also train in the most shark-infested waters of Southern California. So.
I'm glad we can laugh about this. I'm just glad we're laughing about this.
Exactly right.
At night.
Well, please enjoy. You're going to like it.
Make sure you're not sitting on the ejection handle, folks. Here it comes.
Through the weather. Oh, and to the tanker crew who did that. Thanks a lot. We really appreciated that. I'm just kidding.
No, he's not.
No, I'm not.
No, I'm not.
Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the...
So there I was.
That's how all great aviation tales begin. RePete here, coming to you from New Hampshire this afternoon, and I'm joined by my co-host, Fig. Where are you today, sir?
Well, I'm in sunny Kearney, Missouri, which is basically Kansas City, where the Chiefs are going to play the Cincinnati Bengals today in the AFC Championship. That's just a side note. You can probably delete
Conference
that.
Championship Sunday. I got you. All right.
But I am happy to say we have another first with us today. We have our first F-14 Rio, Bo. Welcome, Bo.
Good to be here with you guys.
Yeah. Bo, what is a Rio anyway, besides a river in Spanish?
So it's a radar intercept officer that was in the back of the F-14 and the F-4. They changed to WSO, or weapons system officer, when they went to the Hornet.
Okay.
Fancy.
Sounds complicated.
So for the unanointed amongst our listeners, Bo is Goose from Top Gun. Sorry, Bo.
Except I survived.
except Bo's alive.
Yeah. Very nice. Very nice. Yeah. So Bo was originally one of our listeners and reached out to us, and we chatted a little bit and went, wow, this guy has got some great aviation tales. So here he is.
Can't wait.
Let's back up though just a little bit and ask where it is that you got your interest in aviation, how it is you wound up getting down to Pensacola and becoming a Rio and naval flight officer, and then we'll get into some of those really cool stories because you did a lot of the nasty flying on and off the carriers. No offense to nasty. A lot of the hard flying. That's some of the most difficult aviation in the world, on and off the carrier, and then doing it when you're sweaty, miserable, hot, exhausted, all that good stuff. All right, I'm done talking. How'd you get into aviation, sir?
So I was an Air Force brat. My dad was a flying crew chief on B-36s and B-52s. So I was hooked from an early age and I wanted to go fly. In fact, I was devastated in second grade when I had to get glasses because I knew I couldn't be a pilot. So I kind of shelved that for a while, and then went to the University of Texas, and I was an athletic trainer, so I was going to do that, I thought, for my living. And I was walking through the school one day, and there was this guy in whites who ended up being a leader of the Blue Angels later on, Duster. And he's standing there with these white uniform and ribbons up to his shoulder and these big, bright gold wings, and I went, huh. Because I had talked to the Air Force earlier, and they go, well, we don't have any flying billets. And my dad said, if you aren't flying, don't go in the Air Force as an officer. So I walked over and talked to Duster, and he goes, yeah, we got seats, and you can fly in F-14s or A6s or whatever you want to fly. And, oh, by the way, just to see if you like it, we're going to take you up in a T-34 Bravo that we have out here at the airport. And I was hooked. Nice. So put in my papers, applied, got accepted, became an AVROC. Ooh. So Aviation Reserve Officer Candidate.
Okay.
Which is what that means is the second I put my hand up when I was a sophomore, the clock started ticking for pay.
Nice.
I didn't get paid,
yeah.
but
cool.
Time in service
right.
stuff. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Right. So when you got commissioned as an ensign, you were already an ensign with 3 years as opposed to.
Well, it was 2 by the time I did it. Yeah, because I went pretty quick. So then AOCS for 8 weeks, get done, go back. I had a semester to finish that up. January, I was of 81. I was back down there, did my last 8 weeks, which was the big 3, land survival, all that good stuff, and then got commissioned, and then that got me there, and then I went to I was stashed for a while in a fleet squadron, and then I started flight school.
Okay, nice. Well, good old land survival. Eat any snakes out at Eglin Air Force Base?
No, but we caught an armadillo.
Oh. All right.
Yeah.
A little greasy.
How do you cook one of those? Yeah, right.
Lots of water, and because you got rice.
There you go. Nice.
And then when we did the land navigation piece, and I'd been a Boy Scout, so I knew how to do that stuff. But we had 2 Marine guys in our group, and we said, and they had just come from TBS. So we go, you guys know how to do this, you do it. So they got us to where we had to be to get picked up. So
nice. Remember walking the woods of Quantico with a compass, and oh boy, I'm glad those days are over.
Hey, Bo, I'm assuming since you didn't mention it, so we had an episode that was we had Gunny Go on, and he spent a bunch of years as a drill instructor down there in Pensacola. I'm assuming if you had contact with him, you would have said something.
I did not. He was after me. So my drill instructors were Sergeant Blythe, United States Marine Corps, and Gunnery Sergeant Thixton, United States Marine Corps. Because I had 2 different classes, so 2 different drill instructors.
Nice. Yeah. Thixton's been mentioned. God rest his soul, recently passed.
Yes.
But yeah.
And I followed him. Man. I mean, talk about an amazing guy. He's where I graduated with, and he stayed in touch with us. Really? Before the days of Facebook or any of that, I remember sitting in San Diego one evening, and I got a phone call, and it's Gunny Thixton, I didn't know you could sit at attention on your own couch at home when the voice comes over the phone.
Right.
But you can.
It's a reflex. You're not even realizing you're doing it.
Right.
Oh, exactly.
That's amazing.
No kidding. The terror of those men struck in our hearts. Yep. God bless them.
But you know what? They had a job to do, and they did it well. And that's all I can say. I mean,
Absolutely. I mean, they taught us attention to detail, getting okay with being uncomfortable and all that kind of stuff. And those things at some point probably saved each of our lives.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Bo, we've never had an NFO on before, so I got a couple questions to ask you about training specifics. If you're ready to go with that. So
sure.
We're all pretty familiar with a pilot track, through flight training. What's give me some bullets. What's the difference for NFOs?
Sure. So we go to VT10, and VT10 is both our basic and intermediate training.
Okay.
And so basic goes, you go through all the ground school, and you have 5 flights. And back in my day, it was all in the T2.
Okay.
So your first flight is in a jet with a G suit, mask, the whole shooting match.
Oh, wow.
And so you do 5 flights. There's like the intro, acro. You do a low level. You do do 1 or 2 instrument nav flights, and then at the 5, that's where the P3 guys and C-130 guys leave if they want to go. If you know you want to go jets, because they always have more people wanting P3s than they have seats, you just
Really?
keep going.
Okay.
So I told them, oh yeah, after all these guys want to fly F-14s and then they get their first flight, do acro, and they're suddenly want to go P3.
Yeah. They don't.
Yeah, I don't want any part of that jet thing.
Yeah.
So I said I'm going F-14s or I'm going jets. You don't want to advertise too much. And so they just kept me flying. So I actually was flying like my 3rd or 4th intermediate hop the day my class graduated from basic.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Where they select out and guys go P3, and then the guys who didn't get it, they pick up. So you go all the way through that. And at the end of that, you select. So the E2 guys leave and go to the RAG, and they get their wings in the RAG. And then the rest of us who aren't going E2, so you either go F-14 or the Rio.
Yeah.
You go TN, tactical navigation, or you go OJN, overwater jet navigation, back in my day. Okay. So OJNs were going to go to S3s. TNs were going to go to A6s or EA6s, and then Rios were going to either F-14s or F-4s, because there's still some F-4s in the fleet.
Okay.
And then you go over there, ground school, and then you start flying in the vomit wagon, because you're in the T-39 in the back, all the windows closed, and you're flying intercepts using an old F-8 radar.
So you're in a tube with no windows, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So so there's 3 students that go every time with an instructor. One starts out in the front right, and he does a departure, and then first Rio on the radar does the intercepts. He gets done. He transitions up to the front to do the recovery. Basically, the approach and landing. So back in being a co-pilot for that. And so you do that, and there's a ton of them. You go all through all those different ones. And then real quick, TNs, they are in the same kind of tube, but they have, I think, an A7 radar, and they did all their radar nav, so
low level stuff.
Low levels, on radar to get to the target.
Okay, and for our listeners, a T-39 is similar to a Learjet, if that's...
It's this actual Saberliner is what it actually is.
It's a Saber 40, I think. 60, 40. Yeah, it's an old business jet.
Yeah.
So you get through that, and then you go to the A4, and that's where you do your BFM. So you do unusual attitudes, and then you do basic fighting maneuver. 2 students in the back seats, obviously pilots in the front, and you call the fight. So you basically fly the airplane from the back seat by verbal command. And you get through that, and you get your wings, and now you're off to the fleet.
Wow.
Nice.
Okay.
And how long is that process from start to finish? From the time you become an ensign to the time you have your wings?
About a year.
Okay. So
on how fast you can get through, because you don't have to worry about going to the boat like the pilots do. And so it can go pretty fast as long as the pipe's clear. So.
Yeah, but you can cram a lot of knowledge into your brain in a year. So that tells me that it's not just a quick, hey, here's an airplane, get used to riding in an airplane and start talking. This is it's a true graduate level program that they put you through.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing, like the pilots, they couldn't fly, like in basic, if the weather is bad. Well, that didn't affect us unless we were on a low level.
Yeah.
And a lot of our flying is just instrument flights. So doing all those procedures and talking on the radio and running all the nav. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. And you aren't held up nearly as much for the VFR flying.
Yeah.
So you get to you get your wings, you get out to the F-14, you have to go through the RAG just like the pilots though, right? You don't just go, here's an F-14. Okay.
Right. So yeah, you check into the rag, and it's no different than a pilot checking in. So you're assigned to a class, and usually equal number of pilots and RIOs in the class. You don't fly together, but you all your section work. So, for example, you go out on your section flight. You got a student RIO, if you will, in the back seat, and then you got the pilot is in the front seat of the wing aircraft, and you go through all that. And then for the boat, we don't go to the boat with the pilots, but we will typically, for the senior officers coming through that are going to go to the boat with your class, you get to ride in the back seat for the bounce pattern.
Oh, okay.
Fun times.
Oh yeah. And then I think all of the Rios in my class, we all walked aboard the ship, and then we got some traps with the LSOs. And that's the first time you've ever had a cat shot or you've had a trap in the rag at the end. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. Okay. So your first time at the boat is with an LSO. So a guy who's very experienced around the boat.
Or with an experienced pilot. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. That,
okay.
terrifying.
I gotta need to know, Bo, in the back seat of an F-14, do you have instruments like the pilot's got in the front, attitude indicator and all that, so you can back up nav? And
well, so in the F-14, the RIO's responsible for running the nav.
Okay, so
and then I've got
all instrumentation.
I don't have the great attitude indicator that he does unless I pull up RePete off of his onto my TID.
Okay.
But I do have a standby attitude instrument. I got altimeter, airspeed indicator. We have the IFF in the back, just so you're not going flying without us.
Sure.
Type thing. Well, you can. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But we align the INS, the IMU, which runs all the, helps run the attitude indicators.
Sure.
So you're going to need all that to go fly.
Yeah. And that was all pre-GPS. So you needed that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. At the end of my career, we had GPS. We were holding a brick in our hand.
Wow.
Flying missions.
Okay. Wow.
That's old school for real.
No
yeah.
kidding. To give people an idea, the difference between INS and GPS, when I first got on with the airlines, we had INSs in all the airplanes, and we would, fly across the ocean, and you'd see another airplane going the other way along on the same track, and he'd be a half mile away, a mile away, something like that. Once we got to GPS and everybody using GPS, you're within a wingspan of the airplane going the other way. They're right over you, right over each other. So an INS is an inertial nav unit. It uses gyros and all that kind of stuff to tell you where you are, and it keeps you within a couple miles over the course of many hours. GPS keeps you within 3 feet forever, as long as it's receiving. So I relinquish the floor.
Oh, no problem.
I rest my case, Your Honor. So the very first time you went to the boat, you were in your fleet squadron. Or actually, no, that's not true. You went to the boat in the rag with experienced LSO.
And actually, I cheated. When I was a stash, I was in a fighter squadron, and we went to sea, and they got me a ride in a EA-6B.
Okay.
And they got me a ride in an E2. So I had 2 cats and 2 traps before I went to flight school. And so, but in the F-14, I think I reported to my fleet squadron. I think I got 4 traps and 4 cats. So I got zip squat experience coming to the squadron.
From the back seat of an F-14 coming aboard the ship, what kind of visibility do you have?
Pretty good. I can see the wall.
Okay.
And actually, certain pilots want certain things on the landing, like some want VSI. Well, I don't have a VSI indicator in the back seat, but I can read the pilots by looking over his left shoulder. So if he wants VSI, I'm giving it to him there, which allows him to keep the scan going, meatball lineup angle of attack.
Yeah.
And then also, if I want to make sure the gear's down and the flaps are down and all that, I have to look over his left shoulder to see the gear indicator.
Well, be darned. So that answers another one of my questions. You did there wasn't a duplicate gear in the back.
No.
Okay.
Well, what about,
different
I guess,
design.
before we go on to some of the other fleet stuff, do you recall what you were thinking about the first time you took a cat shot
Yeah, I
or the
wanna
first
know that.
trap?
Yeah.
Because that was, I was screaming like a little girl on my first cat shot.
Oh yeah, I was too.
I'm in an EA6B, so I'm in the family truckster, right? In
Right.
the back, I was in the back right seat, and there was a guy in the back left seat next to
Okay.
me. And he is a qualified NFO, and the last thing I want to do is look like an idiot in front of him. So, I don't think I screamed. I just was like, I'm going to take this like a man, no matter what happens next, type thing. And so, all I remember is this like, holy cow,
Yeah.
just the thump in your chest and all that. And then, the trap in the E6B, you have no forward visibility from the back.
Oh,
my gosh.
So you're just looking out the side, and it's like water, 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 steel,
Bang.
and then you're into your harness. Yeah. And if you
Yes.
don't remember to lock your harness, you're going to eat a lot of dash there
Yeah.
in front of you.
Right. No
I
kidding.
did that.
The same thing with the E2.
Yeah. I don't think I was screaming so much out of fear, but out of it was A, forcing the air out of my lungs, and then B, out of elation. Like, oh my God,
Yeah.
that was so fun.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Holy
What's the saying? I'll pay for day traps, but that's why they pay me for the night traps.
Right on. Fair enough.
Oh yeah, that's a fair
Absolutely.
statement. Having never done a night trap, I can only imagine just based on everyone I know that's done it.
Yeah, I don't know whether
Yeah.
it was Jake or Pester who said that every time he landed, he was an F-14 pilot, got out, every time he got out at night after a landing on the carrier, his knees were shaking. Every time. Without fail.
Not right.
Clear night, good night. Yeah. No,
I know.
right.
It's not
It
right.
never fails. It's the blackest of black. I can't describe how dark it is. I mean, where
Yeah.
people can understand it.
Yeah.
But there was a great line. Quick side note: we had one of our guys in the was having his night in the barrel. Right. I wasn't flying
Yeah.
with him. It was just one. In fact, it was a guy who came to the squadron with me, and he finally traps right. And he's coming out of the LA, and the air boss comes up on the radio and goes, "Go 5, follow your director, follow your director." And he goes, "I'm doing my best. My knees are shaking."
I believe it.
Oh, that's
I believe
great.
it. Wow. No kidding.
Yeah.
His night in the barrel. That's
Yeah.
a good story.
Oh, everybody has them.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what we heard.
We talked about that, yeah. So nighttime, it's always bad. We chatted ahead of time. We have a question. Was that a shark? Talking about a nighttime ejection behind the boat. Elaborate, if you would, sir.
Sure. So it wasn't me. So I actually have landings are equal to takeoffs.
Nobody saw me. You can't prove a thing, right? Is that true?
That's right. So it was my roommate who was on the beach who was in my sister squadron. They were an F-14 single engine coming back to the boat at night. I actually was in the ready room and he saw his ejection. Didn't realize it was him. And actually, we didn't even realize it was an ejection at first because we're talking the 80s, so flat camera technology. But anyway, they're in there, and what happened was the interconnect valve in the F-14 failed. It didn't open up. F-14 NATOPS, the two fuel systems that feed each engine are independent for battle damage type thing.
Okay.
And his operating was getting there, and they couldn't transfer any fuel over there. There's an interconnect valve that opens up that allows fuel to go over so you can take from the non-operating side. Well, it didn't open. So they basically they flamed out.
Oh shit.
So close.
Just right around 3/4 of a mile or so.
So they were
Behind the
coming
boat.
back aboard the ship on one motor
Single engine.
anyway.
Yes.
Is that
And
a normal thing? Because I would
Yeah.
think, oh shit. Okay.
Yeah. That I got to do that later. We'll talk about that later. So anyway, boom, boom, pull the handle, out he goes. It's like that. Oh shit, I'm alive, because he got out and chute open and all that, right? So he's like looking around. And he's like, okay, there's the airplane. He watches it fly into water. He sees his pilot, and then he's like, oh shit, I got stuff to do here. So he starts inflating. He releases his raft. He gets his mask off, and he hits the water. Pops his cokes. Chute goes away. Now remember, he released that. If you remember on the seat pan, the bottom's got to fall all the way down before it inflates your raft.
Yeah, it like pulls a
Right.
pin so that the raft auto inflates, right? Yeah. Okay.
Right. Since he didn't do it that high above the water, right? So the bottom of the seat pan continues to sink. And so he's in the water. It's night. It's dark. He's looking around. He's like trying to find all of his stuff, right? And now it's reached the bottom and tugged. And so the raft is inflating and slowly rising up from the bottom. It opens, it basically unfolds next to him. And he's like, oh, shit. He thought it was Jaws for sure, right?
Oh, man.
So then he's like, oh, it's just my raft. So he grabs onto the raft. So the helo's now coming over. So the helo gets over and says, why not get in the raft? Because I'm just got to get out of it. And if we all remember from water survival, it's not an easy little thing to get into that thing.
No, there's a very good, there's a technique involved.
Right. So he's like, oh, I'm not going to get in because they're just going to have me sink it anyway. So he doesn't get in it. So they get over him and then they leave and they go over to the pilot. So now he's like, shit, I'm getting cold. So I need to get into this thing. So he finally does what he has to, fights his way, gets in. About that time, the helo's back over him again, right? So I think he's been in the raft maybe 2 minutes. Swimmer comes down, get out of your raft. They plunge it and then pick him up. Well, because of all that time in the cold water off of SoCal,
Okay.
he became hypothermic and therefore got the call sign hypo.
Right.
Nice. Anybody who's ever dipped a toe in the water off of Southern California will quickly realize that water is stinking cold all year long.
Yes,
it's not pleasant, warm water in the summer. So,
no.
Oh, that's brutal. Oh my God. Shark. We had another guy who said he was sitting in the raft one night and, where are they off of San Clemente? Fig?
Yeah.
And
They're
the
coming
helo
off
came. Helo came and looked at him and then left. He's like, wait, where are you going?
Hey, what about me?
Yeah, right. He later found out. Well, they just marked him and said we got to go get gas. He said I would have gone with you.
Yeah, happy to go.
What the hell?
But that's a big Pacific Ocean. You also find yourself transiting that a few times. Did you get dragged across by what kind of tankers? I'm assuming you were going to Japan. My question ultimately is how'd you wind up in Wake Island? But how'd you get there in the first place?
Well, I didn't get there by flying across. I was actually operating off the ship. So we were steaming. And so it was one of those things where the pilot I was crewed with, who had been a prior RF-8 guy, but it was his first cruise in Tomcats. So I think between the two of us, we had 500 hours total in the airplane at that point. So we were crewed together, go out and get his night call because he was due. So we manned up our steady steed and it went down in the chocks. Shit. So we go back down to the ready room. They go, okay, you're a spare for this next flight. And we manned up a spare. They didn't shoot the spare, so we get back down. So now we're on the last event of the night. And we got an airplane that had a right generator failed and then wouldn't reset in the air. But they thought they had fixed it, and so that's what they gave us. So we man up that trusty steed, and off we go. And we're flying with the OPSO and EXO we're on their wing, right? So we're out there doing AIC. And the pilot I was flying with, he was our NATOPS officer. So he was infamous for grilling you in the air when it was a boring AIC flight just to make sure you're staying smart on the airplane. So he goes, hey, I've got oil pressure going to 0 here on the left motor. I went, okay. So I'm like, well, there's like, well, if it goes down to 10%, what to do, set the certain RPM. And I go, verify. And he goes, yeah, it's going to 0. And at that time I was like, are you messing with me? Is this part like NATOPS checking me? He goes, no, this is real. And I go, oh, okay. So I got the PCL out. So we make the decision, call our wingman, tell him what's going on, make the decision, shut down the left motor because we didn't want it to seize because then that's just a big old speed brake on the right side, big drag monster for you. So a little background. The 5 previous single-engine Tomcats at the boat had all ended up with ejections. So yeah.
Those aren't good odds.
Yeah, we don't join that club. So the left motor's off, the right motor's running. So it's like one of those things like, well, combines on the left. So I'm like telling them, get the probe out, which is not a procedure thing, but it's a lesson learned from one of those so they could get gas. So we put the probe out. And then remember I told you there was that right generator that was failing and they thought they'd fixed it. Well, they did. Right generator goes off. So now we're on the emergency generator, which is run by hydraulics. The left motor, which means it's now the left hydraulics are being run by the bidirectional pump. So we're compounding. I mean, I have more, my fingers are in more spots of the PCL to do all the different emergency procedures. So, I'm calling the boat saying, hey, we're single engine, no right generator, kind of need to come in and land. And they're like, okay, well, we'll set you up for a straight end. And so they're doing all this stuff. We're getting ready. The CATSI rep's talking to us. The XO and OPSO are talking to us. We're getting everything squared away. So we get lined up. Remember, I told you how we had so many flights. Well, one of the things is when I was waiting to brief again, they said something about we were going to make our closest point of approach to Wake Island that night. And I'm like, okay. So I pulled out the IFR supplement, right? Because there's no approach, nothing.
Right.
Pull it out, read all about Wake Island. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting to know. Little did I realize that was going to pay me dividends later on. So anyway, we get set up, dirty up, controllability checks, everything's good. We're 3/4 mile, call the ball, we're coming in, everything's going well. And he's having to stand on a boot and load of rudder, on the right side with the right motor running and the left motor not running. So which is a little bit more. So we start developing a drift coming in close. And all I know is we're at the in close position, and he does a control correction, and the hydraulics are prioritized to flight control. So when he does that, we dump our generator to the low side. Oh,
man.
So we lose the radios. All of our external lights go off other than our probe light. Paddles is like, they got nothing to look at.
Yeah.
Over the ICS, I hear shit. And I'm like, and I have no cockpit light. So I got my flashlight. So I'm like, grab for the handle, put my flashlight. It's like attitude's good. Altitude's holding, airspeed's 150. That's good. So I'm like, we're not descending. I'm just telling him I've got this litany going. We're not descending. Airspeed's holding. We're not. It's not decaying, right? So I'm just talking me through that. Well, he plugs in the right blower. He's taking his own wave off. Later on, when we heard the plat, the LSOs were like screaming, to wave it off type thing.
Yeah, but you couldn't hear him because the generator kicked off.
We couldn't hear him because we lost that primary radio, and the only radio operating was the front seat radio, which was on Squadron Common, so we didn't hear anything.
Yeah, shit.
So it's just the two of us. So he starts the wave off, and then I feel this shudder, and I'm like, okay, so right now I'm giving you the litany. Okay, airspeed's increasing. We're starting to climb. Things are good. As we're starting to climb away from the water, I go, did you jettison? He goes, no. I go, okay. I don't know what that shutter was. Well, comes to find out what happened was our tail hook took out the Fresnel lens.
No.
Oh, whoa. No wonder they were screaming.
The meatball.
Well, when they were debriefing us, one of the things I said was, when we got to our lowest point before we started climbing away, I looked to the right at the ship. And I said, it was like I was going on down Cat 5 for that. That's how low we were. So anyway, so we trundle on up into the, going up to 1,200 feet. Well, you can't turn into the dead engine. So everybody normally turns left. We're turning right. We get to 1,200 feet, turn right, go downwind. Meanwhile, he does the reset. So we get the stuff back. The loss of electricity scrambled all my presets, so I had to go back in and put them in. So I finally get up on land launch, and I go, we're a beam on the right side. Because everybody, if you say you're a beam, they think you're on the left side.
Yeah.
And so there's this immediate about face to find us. They can't see us. So we're like all squared away. We got pretty good gas. I happen to know we're close to bingo to wake, right? So we say, okay, hey, we're ready to come back aboard. And they go, yeah, we can't do that. You got to take a barricade.
Was it because of the lens?
Well, no, because a part of our landing gear, in this case, our hook, had touched something other than the flight deck.
Okay.
It's in CVA tops. They don't know if there's any damage to it
or not. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
whether your hook's going to work or not. Yeah. So you're going to take a barricade. So we're like, and we said, well, what about divert to wake? And they go, yep, your pigeons are, which is, the heading. And we were right at the right fuel state for that. So I had the bingo profile already pulled, I had that open. So nice. I give it to him. So he hits the profile. We're climbing on that. And there's like, we're sending a tanker to you. And I said, don't come off the profile. Not that he was going to. And the A6 guy who was going to give us, because there have been guys who were on bingo profile and they go, hey, we're sending you a tanker, and they stopped the profile. And then the tanker was sour and they ran out of gas. Right. So we're not going to make that mistake. And so great guy. And unfortunately he's passed, in the A6, the pilot. He was a department head who everybody knew in Airline. Great guy. He goes, stay on your profile. I'll join you. Normally you join the tanker. He's like, right. I'll join you. And no shit. Here comes this A6 up on he asked for our profile. We told him what it was. He found us. You see him come up on our left side. You see the hose coming out behind him as he's getting there. He slides right in front of us. And literally it was a blink, plug in.
That's impressive, gas. Right?
Yeah. I mean, that guy never bought a beer if T-Square and I were in the club.
Nice.
No kidding.
So we take some gas, which gives us insurance. Right and on. So now we're just flying to Wake, and we're waiting until we get into radio range of Wake Island. So for those who haven't been to Wake doesn't have a control tower. Wake doesn't have air traffic control guys. They've got some airfield operation guys who answer the radio.
Right.
So we finally get in range. So I call into them and I go, we're a single engine Tomcat. We got ordnance on board because we had one Phoenix, one Sparrow, one Sidewinder on the airplane. And,
I'm guessing they don't have any ordnance men on the island either.
No, they don't. But they have a nice lagoon that they point you at when they get you towed over there, right?
Yeah.
So we're coming. So I go, typical thing, I don't know they're not air traffic control guys. So I said, what runway are we landing on? And they go, which one do you want to land on? And there's one way. So you either land from the south to the north, or you land, north to south. So I'm like, okay, well, we'll take, because where we're coming from, we'll take the, south to north landing. And so I said, hey, I understand you have arresting gear. Is it in battery? And they go, well, the arresting gear's installed, but it hasn't been tested yet. Would you like to test it? No.
How about that?
So it's like, no, that's okay. Don't worry about that. Just roll the crash crew, and they do have full fire department there. So we come in, dirty up, land, and once we get on the ground, we're talking to them. They don't have anybody who knows how to pin an F-14 or safe the weapon. So we safe up top and bottom. T-Square stays on there. I pop all my fittings, get out, walk off, go off the tail of the airplane on the left side because that motor shut down, obviously. Right motor still running. Go out, get all of our gear pins, pin the airplane. Thank God I watch all the plane captains do it all the time. Did that, safe the weapons, and then he shut down, and then we got out. And so we safely were there, and then later on, what we found out was there was a seal that failed, and so the main shaft of the engine was going out of center, and we were it was tearing blades off, and we were losing oil out where the seal had failed.
Oh,
so they were still finding stator blades from our engine like 2 weeks later on FOD walk downs of the runway at Wake.
Oh my gosh,
that's crazy.
Well, hey, what time of night was this, Bo, that all this went down?
Well, I think it started around 10 o'clock at night.
What time did you touch down? How long was it?
It was probably, I think by the time we got to the BOQ room, it was like midnight.
Okay.
Or it could have been later. It's been a while and a few beers since then.
All right. Well, you used a couple of acronyms, and I want to make sure we cover those. So you said you were on an AIC mission. Can you
Air intercept control. So that's just
you just did defense of the fleet. Yeah, out.
Yeah, you go out and either go up and down a radial, or if you have a controller from the ship who's getting his controls, you might split, and you take about a 30-mile split, turn into each other, and at max conserve, it takes forever to run the intercept, and you just run an intercept on the other airplane.
Okay. And you talked about using your PCL and your fingers all in that.
That was
One.
What's that
Pocket
stand for?
checklist.
Okay.
It's all your
the
emergency
mini
procedures.
blue pill. Right.
Yeah, the mini blue pill, but it affects sleep, not sexual arousal.
Yeah,
That's right.
So there is a so we have the NATOPS manual, which each aircraft has a NATOPS Naval Aviation Training and Operation Procedures manual that covers all the systems,
right.
emergency
Yep.
procedures. Well, pilots and Rios carry a miniature version, which is fits in the G suit pocket that has our emergency procedures and probably some performance tables and stuff like that in it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then you talked about knocking out the Fresnel Lens, which is the Meatball, which provides glide slope on final. Were you guys the only guys airborne? What'd they do?
Set up Mobilus on the right side.
Okay.
So, and the air wing had to fly that way for a week or so before they got the main Fresnel. So, all right, not only did we hose up the landing aid, but the only one available is on the right side. So everybody flies looking to the left at the ball. Now they're having to look to the right for the ball. So they got to retrain their scan the whole time.
Right.
Yeah.
Like Thunderbird number 2, always looking right.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
That's right.
Terrifying. Just terrifying having to do that.
Hey, how long were you guys in wake before they got your airplane? Or I guess, how long was the airplane in wake, and how long did it take you guys to get back to the ship?
Well, funny you should ask that. So the next day we get a message from the ship, and T-Square it was his turn to go to base ops, see if there was anything for us, right? So he comes back and he goes, I got good news and bad news. What do you want? And I go, what's the good news? He goes, they're sending an S3 to pick me up. And I said, what's the bad news? He goes, well, you're PMCF qualified, so you get to stay with the airplane, and they're going to send a pilot back with a rescue crew to, of the Transpac guys, they're going to send the pilot back with maintenance guys, and they're going to change with an engine. And so you're going to stay here on the island until that gets fixed.
I don't see how that's bad news. Just me.
I'm guessing you got a really good feeling for what life's like on Wake Island.
I got that figured out in about 2 hours.
What'd you do in the next 3 weeks?
Yeah. So, there was some fun adventures. So one was,
nice.
It's like 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning. The phone rings in the BOQ room I'm now occupying, and answer the phone, and this is Captain so-and-so of, wherever. And I go, yes, sir. And then he goes, well, he starts asking me all kinds of stuff about the airplane. And I'm like, I don't know who you are. And, so I do some inquiry just to make sure I'm not being, a little OPSECing here.
Spoofed. Yeah.
Yeah. And so finally he told me, so he's like, we're getting you a green sheet must ride engine in there. So we have an engine in there so we can get your airplane back up and running. And I'm like, okay, cool. And when's it's coming? Yeah, it's going to be on the next 141 into Wake. Yeah, it never showed up. So it got held by Air Force MAC guys because the preservative in the heat had dripped out onto the plastic. So they had an unknown liquid in it. So they weren't going to fly it.
Oh, great.
That finally he had to get somebody to go over from Barber's Point to make sure it wasn't a liquid. It was actually the preservative. And then they finally flew it in. But so after T-Square gives me that great news, then I'm staying. So then an F-14 and an S3 show up, and the S3's got a couple of ordnance men and some equipment, and they download the Phoenix, the Sparrow, and the Winder. They upload them on the other airplane. And then T-Square jumps in the S3 as a passenger, and they leave. They were nice enough to send me a ditty bag, so I had like a couple of changes of underwear and a dog kit.
Here's your toothbrush.
Yeah, and t-shirt and shorts, and that's it, right? And some athletic shoes. And I watched my shipmates leave.
Bye.
Don't forget me, please. But I learned a whole lot about Wake Island history.
I bet you did.
Yep. And actually, the guys that were the Air Force guys that were there. It was like a captain and a first lieutenant they were in charge. And then 2 days later, a Marine F4 squadron coming back from a pump stopped in Wake, and there was like 3 or 4 guys I went through flight school with her in there.
Oh,
and
nice.
The XO of BT-86, who was a Rio, was leading the charge of the guys coming back. So got to party with some fellow
old friends,
aviators and old friends, and then they left, and then it became very boring.
Yeah,
but
some of the best snorkeling in the world in the bay there, as I recall.
Yeah, there is, and the Air Force guys had a little thing set up right there in the lagoon, which is between the 2 long extensions of the island. We would go over there, and that was right next to the Japanese got rid of it, but it was the basement to the Pan Am Hotel. That's where the seaplanes would stay for Pan Am when they were going across. And so it was kind of cool to go see that layout, and then they had pictures and stuff. So anyway.
Just to drive this point home, what a small world it is in aviation. So here you are marooned on this Wake Island, Wake Island, in the middle of the Pacific, with a couple other people that work on the island, and then
and friends wander through, huh?
And then friends, and then friends from some other part of the world just drop in, and you guys have beer and have a little camaraderie.
2,000 miles from nowhere.
Exactly. It happens so often. You can't name it, but boy, oh boy, it's a small world in aviation for real.
Yeah. Well, the epilogue of this thing is when the crew shows up, the Rio, who had flown across, who was a lieutenant commander, he shows up with the pilot. And I'm like, what are you doing here? He goes, well, we got to fly a profile after we fix this engine. I said, well, that's why I was here.
That's why.
And they go, well, you're not flying the profile. You need to go on back. So I ended up taking a C-130 to Guam.
Oh, my.
And then a US-3 from Guam to QB, because the ship was in QB. And so after spending 2 weeks, I didn't even, exactly. I get to QB, get a cab or a base vehicle over to the carrier pier there in QB, and walk aboard the ship with my one little bag they gave me and all my flight gear, and walk in, and I put my gear in the paraloft, and then went into the ready room, which was right next door. And they're like, "Hey, welcome back!" And it was, we got to go to Longapo. So, it's like, go down, get out of my bag, put on some clothes, cross the river, and into a Longapo with all my squadron brethren. So,
very
how
nice.
about that? And that. Yeah, and that couldn't have been more. There couldn't have been more difference in the world from where you'd been to where you ended up in a matter of hours, right?
Exactly. So, and then they had me back in the saddle. Like the next day, they put me on the flight schedule, and I went out flying, and life was good.
Nice.
How many hours in the F-14 did you log, Bo?
I ended up with a little over 1,500 hours. I had over 500 traps, of which like 150, almost 200 were at night.
Of course.
It never failed. Every time we had dual carrier battle ops, we were the night carrier for whatever reason. The other ships have mid-rats. We're having breakfast.
Right. There you go.
That's great. That's just great.
Yep.
So I know you had your hand on the handle the night you were single engine. Actually, it was the night you ended up diverting to Wake, right?
Right.
You had your hand on the handle, one hand on the flashlight, trying to help out.
Exactly.
Did you ever have your hand on the handle any other times?
I probably tickled it a couple of times. Nothing that really stands out. Just kind of one of those, oh shit, and then you start for it. Every time on the cat shot, you never put your hand above the thing because you don't want to think that you're saluting. So I would always take the cat shot with my. I would always tickle the handle so I knew where it was, because if anything went wrong on the cat shot, you ain't got a whole lot of time to get out. And so I would be able to just reach down and pull and go if I had to.
F-14 had command eject, so either pilot or Rio could punch both out, right?
So yeah, there's actually a selector switch in the back, or a handle in the back. So if I pulled it to the back, which it would show MCO, because originally the position was going to be the missile control officer, but we went, that's not cool. So if I pull the handle, we both go. If the pilot pulls, we both go. But if it's in the forward, the pilot mode, if I pull the handle in the back seat, I go, but he stays with the bird. And that actually happened to an F-14 where they were doing a orientation flight, and they had it set to pilot because they had a surface warfare guy in the back.
Okay.
And they were doing the negative G checks, and the guy started floating because his harnesses weren't tight.
Oh, shit.
And he reached down.
Let me pull myself back in.
Yeah, he pulled the yellow and black thing, and the next thing you know, he's taking a silk let down, and the pilot's got a convertible, got it back and landed it. Yeah.
And I'm guessing that guy's ass was bruised for months after that, right? I mean,
ow, my ass!
Right?
He's floating, and he thinks I'm going to pull myself back down, and got one hell of a ride instead.
Gets hit in the ass with an ejection seat at full speed. Looks kind of like a mule.
Yeah. So he was a surface warfare captain. So I don't know what happened there.
Well, he probably stayed on the surface after that.
Brutal.
I'm guessing.
Jeez. Well, you have written down on one of these, not a way to start the cruise. Was that this cruise or?
No, So that was my next deployment. So completed that cruise, my rookie cruise, come home. We get our new guys from the RAG. The old guys are, the senior guys are leaving. This is my cruise where I'm going out with a new pilot in the front seat who's a great guy.
So this is a guy, right? First fleet tour, right, from the RAG type?
Yep.
Okay.
So and this is his first deployment. So he's a nugget. I'm a second cruise JO. So I got enough experience to be dangerous, type thing. I've got a little over 500 hours in the airplane. We take off 3-plane. The XO is leading. We have a senior lieutenant and a JO in his back seat. I've got my guy who's a lieutenant out there. The other 2 airplanes have the missiles for the missile shoot, and there's a 3-plane slot to CQ to start deployment.
Okay.
So we fly up north. Where the ship is it's bad weather type thing. So they say, well, we'll bring a section down. So the XO goes, okay, this sounds like it's going to be varsity. So myself and the experienced lieutenant, so the XO Warlock, he takes dirt down. Ike and myself, we stay up in high holding. They get aboard, they taxi, they park them. And then Dirt and his Rio chums, who's a new guy, when they open the canopy, their seats fire, but they're not strapped in.
Oh shit! That's that's
terrifying.
Yeah. Well, and we don't know what happened.
Yeah.
We're overhead. All of a sudden, we get told to divert to Point Magoo. So we go to Point Magoo. We land. We actually had a little bit of a hydraulic leak or something. And VX4's there. And then a guy who had been in our squadron who had just left, Tex, was there. Walked over to VX4 space and said, hey, we need some help. He happened to be there. And he goes, okay, forward black lion's great. Yeah, come on. So they look at our airplane and there's something, they fix it, and we're good to go. We spend the night, and then the next day call down and get told, you're bringing the airplane to Miramar. And you guys are going to helo out to the ship now because we got to get all the safety bubbas out because there's been an accident. And I'm like, okay, you want to tell me about it? He goes, really not. And I said, look, we're hearing rumors of something ugly happened with one of our airplanes. What happened? And that's when he told me that Dirt and chums were dead.
Yeah, brutal.
So one guy died on the ship and the other guy died at UCLA Medical Center.
So not strapped in, ejection seats fired.
Yeah. So what happened? We didn't figure out till later on. being the junior Rio, Chums was tasked with bringing the message boards out, those nice thick metal trifold things that where all your messages are kept on.
Yep.
All right. And we had told him, I'd done that because I'd been the junior guy way back when. It's like, just put them here on the left console down low and put your hand down on the trap and they won't hurt you, but they'll stay out of the way there. Well, he had apparently put them in his bag and put them in the turtle back. So there's a area in the back canopy behind the Rio seat. There's a ECS tube that goes across and there's a flat plate. And we could put bags there, right? And they would just kind of get locked in by that tube. Yeah. What happened is when they trapped, the message board came forward and was laying against the actuator for the ejection seat. When the canopy in the F-14, it slides back before it goes up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when it slid back, that thing fell below, and there's an actuator pin that sticks out the back. And the F-14, when you pull the handle, that thing actually goes up. So the message board is now underneath it. So it started the sequence and everything went. And of course, once you're on deck and chained down and you safe your seats, you unstrap everything because
right.
Now if anything happens, you want to be able to get out and
get egress quickly.
Yeah,
right?
Get out. Right, exactly. Then the seats fired.
So the seats were actually, so they had safed the seats.
They were safed, yeah.
And so,
the seats were
yeah,
safe.
They unstrapped. Not ever thinking there was.
But that actuator is, you're just safing the handles. It's not till you actually put the pins in that you safe the actual actuators.
Yeah, and the plane captains do that. We didn't do that as pilots. We just safed the handle on the the ejection handle by moving. We had an elbow knocker in the in the Harrier.
The only time you put in pins as an air crew, well, first of all, you have to be out of the seat because you can't get to it.
Yeah,
is if you're on a cross country, right? Exactly.
That's just horrific.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's why naval aviation is so damn dangerous. People don't understand. All aviation is, but naval aviation is a special breed of its own when it comes to risk and danger. I swear.
Yeah, so we flew down to Miramar, and then it was like, this will be a couple of days before you get back out to the ship. I spent the night, had to get a room in the queue because I got rid of my apartment. All my shit was in storage.
Sure.
Had to go pick up the flight surgeon when he flew in with their flight gear for analysis. Yeah, that was not fun. So
that's just not the way you want to start the cruise, man.
No,
I mean, holy cow.
Well, 2 weeks later, we lost another jet.
Oh my gosh. Well, okay. Well, what was that scenario?
The SDO that called me to tell me about Dirt and Chums, I just got done flying, landed. We were doing bear ops at the time. So we were almost to the Philippines. We're halfway between Guam and the Philippines. We were doing this, trying to hide from the bear thing, which you always do anytime a carrier battle group goes across. So I just come back from flying and debriefing. I just walked in my stateroom, phone rings, and it's the same SDO going, need you back in the ready room. Skipper wants everybody back in the ready room right now. And it's like, what is going on? He goes, Skull and Socks have ejected and they're looking for him now. It's like, oh shit. So I hang up, run up to the ready room, not that's real far away from my stateroom.
And just to interject real quick, this is another mutual friend. This is the Skull I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Speaking of small worlds.
Yeah. I walk into the ready room and I walk right up to the SGO and I said, do not ever call me again, because every time you call me, we've lost a jet and people are missing or killed.
Yeah.
Because, it's just one of those things you're like, holy shit. So we all get in the ready room. Skipper walks in. He goes, all right, guys, Skull and Socks ran out of gas. They ejected, and we have no fucking idea where they are.
Oh, boy. This is daytime or nighttime, Bo?
Daytime. So late afternoon.
I'm shocked.
Yeah. So what had happened to get this was we were flying total MCON, extended range caps, intercepts of bears to confuse them. If we had normally intercepted them at 100 miles, now we were trying to intercept them at 250 miles away. We were trying to get to where the bear did not overfly the carrier battle group before it got to the Philippines.
Yeah.
Was it's the cat and mouse of the Cold War that we always played. Because of that, and I was the Rio training officer, and when they came up with this whole new tactic and everything, I briefed everybody and I said, nobody launches without an INS. And the XO was like, nobody launches without an INS. Skipper goes, nobody launches without an INS. Well, they were on alert launch, and because we're MCON, they have a SENS cable into the airplane to get the alignment. So take a full alignment, cock the airplane, shut it down so that you can do a rapid alignment with the SENS cable in. Well, before he rotated to INS, the ground guys, because you always want to beat Brand X, without the signal to pull the SENS cable, pull the SENS cable. So it dumped their alignment. So they launched in IMU, which they weren't supposed to do.
Yeah.
Or not recommended, let's put it that way. But so the winds were off. You can fly with an IMU and put winds in and all that, but the winds at altitude were much different than forecast. And, they got to the bear and were on the bear, and then they took their cutaway when it was time, when they got relieved, and they got a vector to get the mother, but they weren't getting the mother. And
okay, so mother is the ship. And also, you talked about the cable, and so what it is, they're plugged into a cable, and the ship is actually sending latitude, longitude, position to the airplane. It takes about 10 minutes for an INS to spool up and orient itself in the world. So once they pull that early, it may well not have tried to align it at all, right?
Correct. Yeah, and SEN stands for Ship's Inertial Navigation System. So we're getting data from Mom via that.
Okay.
If you're not in MCON, it actually can be transmitted and you can pick it up that way. But normally we do it by
MCON, Bo.
Mission control, which means nothing is transmitting.
No one's transmitting.
So you're not using navigation. You're not using radio. You're completely
no tack in, no talking.
Yeah.
Nothing. And then only certain search radars would be used.
Okay.
Right.
So anyway. So they fast where they are, and they're like, we need help. So everything lights up because they break MCON because we got an aircraft in distress. They don't pick up the tack in. That gives you an idea how far away they are.
A couple 100 miles, it sounds like, to start.
Okay, if you're over land, you look down and kind of go, well, I'm seeing these kind of mountains. Well, when you're over the ocean, it's like, I see water. So they,
I see.
that didn't help.
I see a cute puffy cloud that looks like a
exactly.
bear.
So they ask them what the clouds are around. And they have the meteorologists in there going, okay, based upon what they're describing, it looks like they're here. So looks like they need to go this way, roughly. So they do that. They keep going. They're not getting any luck. Nobody is finding them. Different people are hearing them, and they're taking plots and stuff like that. Gas keeps going down, so they tell them to reduce drag. So they blow off their drop tanks. They fire off they jettison their missiles to try to reduce drag. Keep going, and then finally they out of gas. Their tanks are dry.
Oh boy.
They eject, come down pretty close to each other, land in the water, get their rafts tied together. Well, meanwhile, back at the ship, the XO or the skipper is telling us, he goes, well, they have no idea where they are. They literally were saying, okay, when did you talk to them and what time was that? And they would plot it, and then they would draw a 250-mile circle around each one of those plots. And where they converge, they go, this is where we're going to go search for them because this is most likely where they are.
Wow. In the middle of the ocean.
Of the big old Pacific.
Yeah, this is, I got my palms are sweating right now. I mean, I know. All right. So,
right. Yeah.
So they're going out and people are searching and they get close to each other. They come together, they tie their rafts together. So it's like, I want to say it's like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Right. So people are out searching and we end up not finding them before nightfall. So as the sun's starting to go down, it's like the Rio is an experienced guy. He's, talk to him later because he had been my roommate on the first cruise. He's just like, we're not going to die. They'll come look for us tomorrow. Positive attitude. Let's go. Come on. So
come on, man.
Yeah. So anyway, so the next day they're out searching. The XO of one of the A7 squadrons, he's at the end of his search pattern, his radial, right? And right as he's about ready to turn on the ADF, he picks up them transmitting. And it's on his nose. So he continues out and finds them.
Oh my gosh.
And so he marks over top, calls it in, and they go, okay, we got your mark. You can go ahead and come on back. He goes, nope, send a tanker my way and a relief for me. I'm not leaving these guys, because he had been in an air wing where they had done the same thing, and
lost
they
him.
did a mark on top, and then when they went back to where they thought they weren't there.
Yeah.
And then you had to do a complete new search. So he stayed there until the S3 was over top to stay on station till
Kudos to
could
him.
get a helo
Nice.
to him. Yeah. And there's another guy who never paid for a drink
Right.
if a black line was in the bar.
Right.
So basically about 24 hours after they ejected, they were back on board the ship.
So they were swimmers for quite a
Holy
while.
cow.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so we sent a TARPS bird, one of our airplanes, over with a TARPS pod, which is a tactical air reconnaissance pod system, which is a full array of cameras over there, and filmed. And when we looked closer at the thing, the airplane was actually floating below them.
Oh my gosh. You could see
It was sunken. Yeah, you could see it. I mean,
Yeah.
but now that I don't know how deep it was, because the Pacific is a very clear ocean. So
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
see
So
lots
it
of
hit
it.
buoyancy and just kind of stayed
Oh, yeah.
wherever it was,
Yeah.
maybe 30 or 40 feet.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a big airplane,
Yep.
big as a damn
Yep.
tennis court. Wow.
Yeah.
What a story. I think Skull RePete. How do you know him?
He's at my company. I've known him
Okay.
for 15, 17
He
years.
was
Yeah.
down in Kingsville when I got down
Oh,
there
okay.
as an instructor. We passed. Like, I mean, we had, there was a little
Mhm.
overlap, but I met him there.
Okay.
Okay. You mentioned Bo, just as you started to tell that story, hiding from the bear. Explain that. I know what you meant, but explain that for the non-aviators out there.
So in the Cold War era, which this is what, 86 ish. So we're still not we're got a cold stand up. The Soviets would send their Russian bears, the Tu-95 bear, out to find the carrier battle group and get a picture of them flying over the carrier battle group. And so we had two missions. One, we intercepted these guys at long range, and we would escort them. And then if they came down to be near the carrier, we always made sure there was an F-14 between them and the carrier. So if they took any pictures, there was a U.S. Navy airplane between them and the ship.
That's awesome.
And so
Yeah.
it was this cat and mouse that we played with them all the time.
Okay.
And we would try to sneak across.
Okay. Nice. Thank you.
We used
for
to
that.
see them from the ship. And for those that don't know, a Tu-95, I guess the closest we have is the B-52, except the B-52 is a jet.
Mm-hmm.
The 95 is this huge monster airplane with, I think it's 4 engines, but it's counter rotating props.
Yep. Two
And-
props per engine.
Yeah. And tail gunner. I mean, it's the greatest in 50s technology, Russian technology.
And when you join on them and you're flying a wing on them, your airplane is vibrating.
Oh yeah.
You can feel the vibration from those counter rotating props. It's like, holy smokes. I can just imagine what it's like inside that
no.
airplane.
Those
Those guys must walk out, shaking.
That's not
Yeah.
good.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Jeez.
So Black Lions had kind of a black cloud hanging over them. It seemed like, because later on, that was the squadron that I'm sure it was after you left, but that was the squadron that lost a couple planes with what wasn't that Kara Holt? Wasn't Kara Holtgreen in that squadron?
Yeah, she was. That was long after I'd
Yeah.
left. But,
Yeah.
it was cyclical because they'd had great luck. And then so the previous cruise, remember the airplane I single engined, right, with,
Mhm.
they got it to the Philippines. They left it on the beach deck, and the two maintenance guys took it out and flew it, and they ended up crashing, and both of them died
In that plane,
in that very plane. Yeah.
like on a FCF functional check flight after they
Functional check flight.
gosh.
It wasn't a functional check flight. It was a confidence flight off the beach deck.
Oh my gosh.
We were actually in Hong Kong, in a port call in Hong Kong when that happened.
All right. So just to put things into perspective for listeners
Mhm.
that I'm just trying to get, and this doesn't have to be accurate. You had a 17-year career as a naval officer in the air wing, aviation,
Right.
branch of the Navy, right?
Yeah.
If you had to just give me a wag in your 17 years, how many pilots, RIOs, or NFOs in general did you know that paid the ultimate price?
Of the guys I knew, both from flight school and then who I served with, I was out of fingers and almost out of toes.
Yeah, and that's
yeah.
that's
I mean,
impressive.
when I completed my first fleet tour, between guys I knew in flight school, guys in the air wing, I think I had 8 or 9 had been killed.
Isn't that something?
One of the guys I went through flight school with, he got killed on the East Coast, and it was like the night from hell. They lost 3 Tomcats in one night.
Oh my gosh, like a midair type deal?
A midair and then something else. Yeah, I don't know what else.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's a very unforgiving profession.
Yeah.
And I remember when I checked into Meridian for jet training, the Commodore, the commander of the Air Wing, came and gave us, our class, a little welcome aboard. And there were maybe 15 of us in the room, like 4 Marines, and the rest were Navy guys. And he says, hey, I want you to look to your left and look to your right. So, everybody did that. And he says, if you spend a career in naval aviation, one of those people you just looked at won't be here at the end, because of it's a risky business. And I thought, well, that seems kind of excessive. And holy shit, he was spot on. Actually, he was more than spot on. It depended on where you were, right?
Absolutely.
We're not even talking about being shot at here. This is just
training. Yeah.
Just normal ops. It is a hazardous undertaking, right?
Yeah. So if they wonder why guys with gold wings walk around with a little bit of swagger, that's why.
Bingo.
We're still
Exactly
alive,
right.
damn it.
Right. Absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, the things that these men and women are asked to do and go out and do, and it's amazing. These are amazing people. These are not people that are average. They're well above average. Like you say, they walk around with a swagger for a reason. So proud to be associated with them.
Yeah, boy, me too. I feel humbled. I feel humbled I thank you for your service, Bo. If I forget to say it, I'm saying it right now. I never flew around with a Rio, and we used to make fun of BNs and crews that had extra. We'd say, I'd rather have the extra, 300 pounds of fuel. But on a dark night when things are going to shit, I bet you were worth your weight in gold, basically, right? I know it. I know for a fact.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we intended to be there. When your pilot's having his night in the barrel, I mean, being a Rio is tactician, technician, psychologist.
There you go.
Cheerleader.
All of that.
I was going to say diplomat.
Yeah, he's coming off, he's crappy pass, out of sight, whatever, and it's just like, okay, let's get up 1,200 feet. Let's turn down one. Okay, let's put that one behind us. Let's get a good one. Sometimes you just give a buffalo call. We were out of cycle. Especially in pitching deck, you just go, we were out of cycle with the deck. Don't worry about it. You flew a good pass, because that probably is what happened. He got out of cycle with the deck. If the deck's coming up when you're coming down, they're going to pickle you every time because they're afraid you're going to break the airplane. So you just got to do that. What I learned was I just talk really calm and quiet. And I used to tell my guys, I said, if you ever hear me raise my voice, whatever I'm telling you to do, I need you to do it right now, because I'm recognizing we're going to go into extremis. I don't think I ever did raise my voice in the airplane.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well, not for an emergency. I might have raised my voice like, break, because somebody's coming on us, but break left now.
Yeah. Lawman talked about that in one of his shows. He's talked about, you could tell a lot from a guy just the way he sounded on the radio. Was he angry? Was he frightened? Was he, calm? Were things going well? Yeah.
Yeah. You got to fake it. If you're getting a little bit of the vertigo, you don't say anything about it. There was a couple nights where I swear to God, we were coming aboard upside down.
Yeah.
But we weren't.
Been there, done
right
that,
side
yeah.
up.
Oh yeah. Well, I was certain I was joining on a tanker at on knife edge. I thought we were all going to die.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But we weren't. We were wings level, but I swear we were 90 degrees. Everything was leaning.
Which is a good segue into that's not our tanker. how we almost flew into the water at night. I think that's probably a good place to wind it up.
That's not our tanker. I want to hear that.
Yeah.
Flying in the Med now. I'm in my department head tour, and launch with a Nugget off the boat. We're scheduled to take gas from an A6 up at 10,000 feet. So, boom, get off. Take off, climbing out, get out. Outside. Now we turn back in at 10,000, looking for the tanker. And the F-14 has an IFF interrogator on it, and so you can dial in the codes and there are certain codes that every wing airplane has based on their side number. So I know what side number the tanker is. So I plug it in. I do a little bit of interrogating because there's a whole lot of traffic, in the Med. There's a lot of air traffic, right?
Sure.
So I find him in pulse search, lock him, double check, make sure that's him. I go, okay, I've locked the tanker. We're at 10, join up. Now the A6, the KA6s especially, their external lighting sucked.
They were usually old, right? The older ones.
Yeah, they're old. But the one thing is they have this really bright white tail light, right? So if you're coming in from behind, you just get on that white light and you join on them, right? So I tell the pilot, hey, here's where they are. Go join on him. So he goes, yeah, I see the tail. I see the bright white light, the tail light. And I said, okay, good. So continuing, I'm like, shit, we should be aboard by now. Just one of those things. We should be, I should be seeing other lights of the A6 and I'm not. And then I'm watching it drift to the right. So the track, the lock on the thing is drifting to the right to the point that we break lock. So it exceeded the antenna gimbals. And I'm like, what the?
Weird.
So now your spidey senses are up, right? And I'm like, what is going on? And then I look, and the altimeter is rounding down through 6,000 feet.
Whoa! And you started at 10.
Yes. So I'm like,
shit.
What are you? It's just one of those things. I said, level your wings and pull up. We're at 6,000. I said, what are you joining on? He goes, I'm joining on the A6, the white light down there. It's the freaking mast light of a freighter in the Med.
Boy.
Yeah. Because of in the Med, there's that haze that's always there.
You're going to have to get a whole lot slower.
Yeah. It's going to get a whole lot slower and a whole lot lower. And I don't think they have the right kind of gas.
Yes.
Shit.
But redo everything and go back, get up at 10, find him again, join on the actual A6, get our gas, and go on our merry way doing our mission. But oh boy, so those are the things where that's where Rio helps.
Good catch, Bo. So were you in a shallow descent, or was it a pretty rapid descent?
Shallow. It wasn't like we rapidly got down there, but it's just one of those things. You're flying the circle, and of course you're kind of expecting a little bit because so here's the A6, as you're coming in, you're going to kind of, because he's in a constant left turn. So you're going to ease in and then fall into position. So it's not unusual to feel, yourself go down, but it was it was a gradual descent because it wasn't like, what the hell, where you felt the airplane dropping.
That's almost worse, I think, because it's less to clue you in that bad things are happening.
I guarantee most CFITs happen that way,
Oh, yeah.
Control flight into terrain.
That's terrifying.
Sorry. Absolutely.
That's just terrifying. Oh, my gosh. Well, that's a good story. And that also makes my palms are sweating right now. Just because I'm seeing that. I mean, I was there with you for a second, and then when you said it was the mast on a freighter, that's like that kind of reminded me a little bit of the Ragu story.
Ragu,
where he joined on we thought he
joined on a buoy in the bay off of Iwakuni.
His wing, his lead did, and he scraped him off, right?
Yeah.
He scraped
That's right.
his wing. Yeah. Anyway,
he woke up with water coming in the cockpit, going, "What's going on?
Why is this happening?"
Yeah, it's not supposed to be wet in here.
Yeah. So,
Well, thank you, Bo, for your service, and thank you for
thank you.
your great stories. You're our first Rio. I hope this is the beginning of more Rio stories, because well, they're from a different perspective, and I learned several things today that I never knew.
Right? That's great.
Yeah. We need to say thank you also to our best friend Dave Hamilton. If it wasn't for Dave, it wasn't for you and Dave, but especially Dave for giving us the technical know-how and bandwidth. And
Dave over at the Mac Geek Gab.
That's right.
MacGeekGab.com.
I also have to recognize our favorite sponsor, Robin's Bird Brain Designs, and I had the coaster in my hand to set it on, and I was gonna. Oh, you got one? Tell me you have one.
I think so. Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Now, I was going to bring it down and I say, "Look, this is mine." Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, I got to talk while I do it, so I stay on camera, and of course, it's invisible there unless I get it really close to my face. So there's my airplane tail number and my airspeed indicator.
Yeah, she
Custom
can
Edge does it all.
Damn near anything you need, laser engraved, and I'll make it a point to put mine up because they were cool. They got our old squadron logo on them. I put call signs for all my family on there. And then, as you can tell by the background noise, we need to say thank you to the Dos Gringos for letting us use their awesome music.
Great stuff. Great music.
Great stuff. And you were a blast to talk to, Bo. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, and any other time, let me know.
Please come back. Yeah.
And for all of our listeners, don't forget to, you say it, buddy. Say it before you cough.
Oh. Yeah, before I cough again, all right? Until next week, stay safe and check 6.
Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the shit I was wearing on that day. Now an F-16 is cramped enough, but it's even worse with all that stuff supposed to save your life. But we knew there was no way. Cause when you're going down the North Atlantic, man, it's over.
Like the song says, it's over.
It's crashing time! Lousy, rotten karmic retribution.